Hello, everybody. Let me get my good buddy, Mr. Schleboyko there. Ooh, there's a moon.
I'm working on my own movie about the moon.
Well, you are 4 current viewers right now. Thank you both, all 4 of you, very much for coming to our, what is it, our 3rd episode, Jim?
It is, yeah. Yep, number 3.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks very much. What we're going to be talking about, overanalyzing about, is Chinese made blockbuster sci-fi action, the Michael Bay's and China's answer to Michael Bay, The Wandering Earth.
It's also a bit of a family kitchen sink drama with lasers.
And planets flying around like cars.
Yes. Oh, look, you can see the Earth behind me right now.
There you go. Why didn't you have them both together?
All kinds of planets here in my house.
So, Jim, do you want to, you know what we can do? I actually have queued up the trailer. Did you want to introduce the trailer while I get it going, and then we'll just put the trailer up quickly?
Really, yeah, just a little bit of a
the teaser.
Sure, yeah.
And we can. Oh, go ahead. Yep.
I just wrote a little thing before we joined up today, and it said I just put The Wandering Earth is a movie about what happens when a director wants to shoot a machine gun into the eye of Jupiter and gets funded by Alibaba. Actually, no, the actual synopsis: in the early 2060s, our sun starts acting rather dangerously, suggesting that the future life on Earth is in peril. So the unified Earth government, which is funny in its own way, then decides to harness the power of 1,100 Mount Everest-sized engines and simply move it to the Alpha Centauri quadrant, which will be also known to Choose Your Own Adventure fans, and also disintegrating is one particular family torn apart by this project to save the Earth.
Awesome. Well, here, I'll throw up the, I'm going to get the, let me cue this up and. Sure. Oh.
There we go.
That's something else, eh?
Was that?
That's something else, eh?
Yeah. No, also apparently it was released on Chinese New Year as well.
Oh, sorry about that. 1 second.
Nope.
Apparently, I'm just not that good at this. Anyway, continue. Chinese New Year.
Sure, number 3. It was actually released on Chinese New Year. So I think it was taking advantage of the holiday, much like when they show things in the May long weekend in the States. It's sort of, I guess, a kickoff. A lot of people are going to movies as families and things like that. And it's about family, so there's a tie-in.
Well, and that's very, well, what was your initial take on it?
Well, okay, so
here, let me start with my hot take then.
Sure, go nuts.
I had a good time. It was fun. I even got a little misty at the end.
Yeah.
Like, there's much to make fun of here.
Oh, tons.
So much. And even that was part of the joy. Mm-hmm. But I got to admit, I was like, kind of, wow, the Chinese Armageddon.
Yeah,
I'm kind of digging it.
Yeah.
How about you?
Uh, the first hour I was sort of, uh, well, I initially went to various sources to see how the movie was received. Number one, it apparently has done the second biggest box office for any Chinese movie, like in the history of Chinese movies. So it was a massive, massive hit there. And a lot of people on Twitter were saying things, and they were probably younger, and they were saying things like, "Oh my, OMG! I just saw The Wandering Earth. I can't stop crying." And I thought, okay, well, that's a good sign. But anyway,
Sure.
so about an hour into it, I was sort of rolling my eyes at the science of it. But then it actually
Well,
sort of, almost like Overlord last week. It came together in the final third, and it actually had a little bit of punch.
mhm.
For me, one of the things is it's hard to totally dismiss the premise of a movie, because the premise of the movie is the premise of the movie. I mean, if you don't have the premise, you don't have a movie, right? So if you're going to
Yep.
say, your criticism of it, should it have been made, I guess, would be, the finer point to put on that. But so it is what it is. That's sort of what I mean when I say that. It's a movie about moving the Earth to another solar system with
Yeah.
1,100 engines, regardless of how
'Cause that's the
plausible
thing.
or whatever. And you can make the argument that another sign of a interesting time at the movies. I've never seen that before on screen, right? It's not about aliens. It's not about anything else. It's just about moving the Earth. So yeah, I mean,
Well, yeah, since like
I'm
Deep
glad I'm not a
Impact
scientist, because
or
my brain would have exploded probably about 45 minutes in. But it was what it was. It was very
yeah.
noisy and very crazy, and lots of stuff going on, and not a single computer was used in the making of that movie. No,
That was all
just kidding.
really good
It's filmed in the
drawing.
dogma style, only natural light, no special effects, all natural.
Did you think though, like, yeah, it's certainly all of those things. Bombastic, a little chauvinist. Although there's some lip service to mankind,
Mm,
humanity, all civilizations. I
mm,
did enjoy the fact that right near the end, Canada gets a mention,
mm.
which,
Captain Brandon.
yes, Captain Brandon from the Canadian Rescue Unit.
Yes.
But I'm thinking though, they had to have some English speaking chump.
Mm,
And they they had a visual of an American rescue unit in one of those trucks. Talk about space trucking, eh?
yeah.
Uh, but it was I was thinking, yeah, they really, you know what? We might be the only English speaking country that doesn't have a horrible past with China, and I'm thinking about, Great Britain or and the
Yeah.
Opium Wars, or the United States, and that, whether it be the I'm misusing gunboat diplomacy, but it
Mm,
wasn't like Perry didn't show up with a boat and guns.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I know that was in Japan, but as part of their Asian, you know, expansion, let's say.
Yeah.
But even worse, like more the ugly American era, 30s, 40s, so yeah, I was like, they're probably kind of well, we don't hate them, so sure. They
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
have a moment being good guys.
Mhm.
um
Yeah, I mean, the two principal countries that you saw the most of was China and were China and Russia.
uh-huh.
There was some. It's kind of funny that there's a Japanese crew that commits suicide at the end. And there's like there's an Indian group. They've got black suits and black turbans and the Indian flag on their shoulders, and
Mhm.
and they're like, yeah, no, I'm not going to turn around. And so and they're
Yeah,
like, oh, the Israelis tried this already, and they thought it would fail,
yeah.
and so
Well,
it's like good old fashioned Chinese stick to itiveness, you know, saves
well,
the day.
yeah, you know what though, that said, but that is like, I think we talked about it a bit when we were talking about choosing this movie,
Mhm.
and it was only reinforced as I watched it. It's a very much a Armageddon, or Armageddon meets, and now this is going back to the science for a second. So I think it's
Yeah.
Armageddon meets, oh heck, help me out, Jim. Independence Day.
Okay. Oh yes. Okay.
Okay, so that kind of, we found a solution, and that
Yeah.
brings everyone together, right? Because it wasn't just, I mean, it wasn't just everyone was just buggering off.
Mm.
Everyone, no one was coming back
Yeah.
until they had that last moment, where
Yeah.
the sister makes her big impassioned speech.
Duo,
and all,
duo.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
That said, I want to. I think there's some things that you didn't see. Like, there's a lot more deep impact. If we talk about like 3 space disaster movies,
Mhm.
you got Armageddon, and you have Independence Day, and kind of, I mean, except that they're fighting aliens on Earth. Although
Mhm.
this was all set on Earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Deep Impact. I think of all of them, it takes a lot. It takes more than probably a first blush would give it credit for from Deep Impact. Every character is reasonably, like, or at least the important characters at the beginning. Yeah, they're kind of, that they're given some, they're not total caricatures. And although you may disagree, like, please do. You got a bit of a,
Okay.
I,
All
you
right.
know what?
I got some lines here. Is the committee giving out free dumplings tonight? Come. All you think about is food. Like,
Okay,
Jughead,
maybe I'm giving it too much credit, but they weren't as heck, I'll circle back to that. Well, but you know what? I have to say, yeah, maybe it deserves another look, and I'm totally full of crap.
Okay,
But it did have it just, and maybe this is that. Actually, you know what? Let me circle back. So you've got Independence Day, which was Roland Emmerich.
Mhm. I think
Yeah.
so.
So Roland Emmerich, and you have Michael Bay doing Armageddon, and they were super big on the, the low gimbal looking up moments, as they
Yeah.
come around the character. They actually really lightened up on that. When people were talking, when they're having a moment talking, it wasn't immediately interrupted with a moment, and there wasn't a lot of, that cool moments. None of these characters had those cool, or not, I shouldn't say none of them. No, not that over the top or Zack Snyder over the top. They did, when they had a moment, they earned it within the rules of the film, and
Yeah.
in the jingoistic genre.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if they, it was, there were, I don't want to call this subtle.
Yes.
It was
Okay,
a quiet approach to,
Yeah, I agree. A quieter than the others.
yeah. I mean, I'd have to watch
Maybe
those
that's the
again,
way to put it.
but a little less. It it really reminded me a lot of. I think I saw half of Pearl Harbor once, and just the sort of the setups and the
God, that was a
exposition,
horrible film.
and just the way it jumped from scene to scene and that kind of thing. It sort of reminded me a little bit of that. But
I really need to stop playing with focus. You continue on. I'm still here.
sure. No, I mean, there's a couple of other things I wanted to bring up early because I'll probably forget them later. Well, there was just a weird transitioning from scene to scene. Like, there was often, like, they would introduce one character and they wouldn't introduce the other. Like the whiz kid at the end who had the dice. All the smart guys have. Yeah, I think so. All the smart guys have glasses, so he was the younger guy with glasses, and
the guys in the white suits.
Yes,
Black suits for the military, red suits for the plebes that keep the whole operation running.
For the engineers, maybe, or something to that effect.
Well, they're all mechanics, right? Mechanics and truck drivers. That's what they what they do.
He had a pair of gold, basically 20-sided dice. And so he was playing with that, and they showed him playing with it and getting ready to roll them.
Nerd cred.
Yeah, exactly. And they never showed out. not only did he not properly roll them, he just set them down at one point, but you never saw what the result was, which is it's like having a deck of cards and he goes, turn that card over, and then the camera cuts away to something else. And you never find out what the top card was. Like it's
once again denied. Never get to the fireworks factory.
There was another fireworks factory moment, which was when the older guy with glasses vomited into his own helmet and started wrestling, and then the captain said, "Get your helmets on." And he looked at his vomit-filled helmet, and he looked at Tim, and he tried to steal Tim's.
Well, then they were fighting over it.
And then the next shot of those two, they both have clean helmets, so you never ever find out what happened to the vomit helmet.
I could kind of see the dice, the vomit helmet. I'm okay with not knowing, that it survived that, but it makes me think of because Harrison Ford's been in the news recently. Mm-hmm. One of the great impressions Mark Hamill did of Harrison Ford, it's not that kind of movie, kid.
Yeah,
where exactly. He's like, my hair should be wet, his should be full of puke, and they're like, no, we had our joke, we don't need that anymore. So I think that was a reasonable choice and a correct one, because if it was just forever there, after a while the audience starts thinking, well, a puke, but of course, they didn't need to do the joke at all, I suppose.
Well, and who's going to vomit into their own helmet? Like, does this guy belong in space? Like, how did he pass the whatever course, Just do it on the floor. Nobody cares at that point. Everything's going to hell. And anyway, but, and then there's different ways. And of course, being from Winnipeg, the way they handle sort of cold and hot, you never see anybody's breath. And, the minus 81 or minus 84 or whatever affects everything else but the mask, right? You never see any condensation. You never see any freezing up.
Ever.
Nothing fogs up.
The best fog management.
Similarly, when they're underneath the engine at the end, it's 120 degrees and maybe they were sweating. I didn't notice, but it just
there was no
indication of the extremes of temperature other than like visual, like snow and fire. Anyway, but that's
well, and maybe something would beep at them. Oh wait,
yes, yeah.
When Grandpa died,
yes, that's true,
and it was like
that's a good point. Yeah.
It was like and do that fast freeze for dehydrating food. Minus 80 is god awful. Pardon the language. I really do need to get a beeper.
Parental warning.
Well, I definitely designated. Yeah, this isn't meant for children. So we're certainly not marketing it towards them. At least not actual children. You know what though, Jim, to be honest, it was you saying it that made me, oh yeah, that's right.
Well, it's just sort of
ever since other cues,
ever since King Kong, when she's up in January or February, whatever it is, the Peter Jackson one, and you can't see her breath, and she's in a nightgown, and she's like not dead from hypothermia. She's like 500 feet above Manhattan. Whenever anybody tries to depict cold and they don't do a good job of it, I'm there.
You're lying in wait, ready to judge.
I can't believe how cheeky you are is another line that I wrote down that I thought was quite good.
Cheeky. Do we have any? Not a one.
What's that?
I was wondering. It's like, hey, do we have anything on here? And it's like, not a one. Let's see. We're down to one loyal viewer.
Hi, loyal viewer.
Whoever you are. Thanks.
Is it me? No.
It could be. Do you have it also up in another window?
I did. That's why there's a little bit of feedback, but I got rid of it. I didn't realize I still had it.
You know what? I'm sure it means one for every 100.
There you go.
Followers.
It's the head of Alibaba who's going to.
So did you do any any kind of advanced research? Like the the best I did for this was a quick scan of the Wikipedia page, but
Mhm.
otherwise it was like, and I really kind of wanted to look into this because, and again, I guess I'm the one singing the praises. Uh, it was like, and now mind you, the first 5 minutes is all I needed of Shanghai Express. Like, as part of these Chinese blockbusters that are coming on Netflix of late, that was like you could just see the late, like the 80s sci-fi, like cheap 80s sci-fi movies,
Mhm.
where you really do, that's a fake set. Like, it looked like Spaceballs, that set, without the laughs, like
No,
just
really, yeah.
no
You
laughs,
thought
like
so?
they're really taking it seriously. And whereas this, the effects were pretty
Mhm.
solid. I mean, yeah, you're right, Jim. Like, there are challenges with it, but I was not regularly taken out of the movie. Like, I really did kind of buy, like, it was just a well produced, pretty slick, pretty slick
Mhm.
flick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. Now, mind you, again, I was so kind of dreading okay, they blew all their money on one good scene, and,
Yeah.
and the rest is going to be Shanghai Express. But boy, I really have a mean on for Shanghai Express. But what did you think? Like, as far as production values go, notwithstanding the temperature stuff and that.
Yeah, I mean, it looked great. A lot of it was, I mean, often a book or a movie will come together, from one basic image, uh, I don't profess to know what the image would be that inspired this one, but I think it would be having Jupiter hovering really close to Earth, and so, that's sort of like that. That Omni kind of school of
Yeah,
sort of Omni magazine school of art direction that you think would be fairly cool.
that's
eh,
interesting. You're saying that. Go
yeah,
on. Sorry.
but so there were a lot of good looks. Some of the imagery of the Earth being sort of siphoned of oxygen and that sort of thing. It looked like an eyeball traveling through space a little bit.
Yeah,
That was kind of striking. There was some good imagery in it. And stuff. Again, when you go to a movie, you kind of want to see things that you hadn't seen before on film, right?
yeah.
And so that was kind of there were some really good shots there. I was reading one article that the guy, an astrophysicist, sort of mentioned they completely forgot about the moon. The moon, you don't even see the moon in this. And
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah,
yeah,
you're right.
I'll bring that up later. I have some more detail there. I saved an article here, but yeah, I mean, it looked great. A little bit of overkill. Like, it's one of those movies that could probably give you a headache if if you saw it in not the right frame of mind. But
Yeah,
almost overwhelming. Maybe that's the point too. A lot of snow, a lot of fire, a lot of things coming at you. Not a lot of, and my tastes. I like a movie to breathe a little bit, and this strangely had some breathing some moments clarity at the end.
yeah.
But yeah, it was a tiny bit.
Sorry, Jim,
I,
I'm trying to give you
yeah,
focus here.
no, it's okay.
Continue.
Tiny bit,
Continue.
tiny bit rushed. But so that was, I mean, but yeah, was it a pacing issue? I don't know. But in terms of the look of the movie, yeah, it's a lot going on. None of it looked bad. None of it took you out of it, really.
Yeah.
I'd say that, I guess.
Well, and that's, I like the way that's exactly it. I rarely, even the stuff that I thought was like really kind of over the top, I just enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
really kind of, once it got going, it's like, okay, this is Armageddon. That's what it is.
Mhm.
It's it really was. It was like, oh, so they're gonna it's the JATO rocket, the jet assisted takeoff rocket or car, except you're putting it on a planet.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And just as the Jado car never worked out for the Mythbusters, I'm like, of course this is not going to be this well thought out scheme is going to hit a bump.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. What I've got up here on the screen is I get. Here's the thing. It was based on
Mhm.
a novel, a novella,
Yeah.
and I really thought that was kind of interesting that it actually had, like and not a comic, not a, but there's this Chinese, and he's like,
Well thought
I'm
of.
gonna Lu. Oh, you know what? Zishin. You know what?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my
Good
exactly
luck with
my
that.
Mandarin pronunciation.
Lou Kixon.
Mr. Liu,
Yeah.
Mr. Liu is 9-time winner of the Galaxy Award, China's most prestigious literary fiction award.
Only
Uh,
9?
winner of the Hugo Award, 2015, 2017 Locus Award. Like, I mean, this guy's got
Yeah.
serious writing chops, and I think
Oh, you cut out there.
that time I screwed up.
Oh.
I mean, I do, Jim, think that that was kind of interesting that there's actually, and I'm gonna have to. There are English translations of this thing, and so there's a
Yeah.
part of me kind of I kind of need to see this.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
as folks even have a well, of course they're older, but he I like this, Jim. Here, wait, let me get it back on. All right. And then let's oh, sorry. Here we are. So if you look, I really enjoy this. I don't know if you can see the detail where I'm can I just a sec here.
You'll have to read it out. It's very, it's like 6-point font or
Part
something.
of my you see Liu graduated from the North China University of Water Conservancy and electric power in 1988.
Ooh.
And it is. And then he worked at a power plant as a computer engineer in the Shaanxi province. And I'm just like, it is, well, late 80s, his folks, there was,
Yeah.
he was, because of the Cultural Revolution, his folks sent him to go live, like, sent him out to the country, I guess,
Yeah.
in Henan province. And I just find that kind of interesting that it does have although it's certainly, I can't say it's unlike American films of the style, it's not as critical of the state, but it's not like it's, like they almost remember the beginning, the kid's sister in the classroom, very, like if you put it in a North American or an American context,
Yeah.
it's like, what is the fourth word of the Pledge of Allegiance, or what does this line of the Pledge of Allegiance mean? And that keener in every class in all cultures gets up, well, teacher, I've got the answer.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, sullen Teen Monthly cover girl,
Yeah.
Dwo, it's like,
All I want is a bowl of noodles, I tell you. Yeah. And to go outside. Boy, I sure like playing soccer. That kind of. I should have watched it dubbed. I sort of wanted to know what it'd be like dubbed. I tried to, because that can destroy any movie fairly thoroughly. That great Swedish vampire, low key Swedish, Let the Right One In. Yeah, not the American version, but the Swedish one. We tried watching it once.
Let the Right One In was
Let
that
the Right One
in. Let the Right One In, and then Let Me In was the American one.
Well, was it? Okay. So Let the Right One In, and we watched it dubbed initially, and we couldn't figure the settings out. So it was just like, you were a vampire, I tell you. And it was just like, oh, it's not working. I think SCTV destroyed that for me at watching anything dubbed. But
well, it's interesting. So we can check. We promised in our promo, Jim, to answer three questions, and
Oh yeah, sure.
it sounds
No,
like
no.
you did
Employ some structure.
you watched it. You watched
Yeah.
it with subtitles, as did I. And yeah, I makes all the difference, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I
especially
mean,
over the yeah,
I was just gonna say at the very start, it was a little bit,
as I look
because
away.
they just in the prologue there, they had the various sort of things going on around the earth and a headline, and you were reading at the same time. So then it was once you got past that, like it was a lot to take in,
That
and you're
big
trying to figure out,
exposition. The
yeah,
video the video game cutscene you were talking about.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, that's really
That movie was the best video game, but where it reminds me of the Taco Time commercial on SNL. Pizza. Now that's what I call a taco. But anyway, it's a whole other kettle of fish. But yeah, I know it was a lot. One of the chirons in the clip of the American news that they said was that worms would be a main source of protein for humankind. It's just sort of it's just going on the bottom of the screen. You try to take in everything. I even took a picture. I was going to translate the French one, but I ran out of time or what have you. But yeah, so yeah, okay. So subtitles, yes, definitely watch it with subtitles.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm gonna go back to that yeah, that big expository dump at the beginning,
Yeah.
which actually probably wasn't that long.
Mm.
But if there's a missed opportunity now, partly I've been thinking about this a lot, and I've been reading about great exposition scenes and
Mhm.
great ways of doing exposition. One
There's
that
a lot
comes
of
to
that
mind.
here.
Pardon?
There's a lot of that here. Go ahead.
Well, a lot
What?
of exposition,
Yeah.
but was it as well executed as it could have? And comparing it to The Matrix as an example, which was like, oh my goodness, every bit of exposition, they set it up as a question, so you're dying for the answer. When you finally get it, which if it was done any other way, you'd be, okay, can we get to the movie?
Mm.
There, you're like, you've been so in it, but you still don't quite know what's going on. You're like, what the hell does this all mean?
Yeah.
That when he sits him down, when Morpheus sits Neo down and says, okay, here, this is what's really happening. You're like, oh, thank God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where are we going to next? This is even better than I thought.
Well, and that's half the battle too, and you realize that doing that gracefully is such a to and that I equate to being light on your feet as a storyteller, and that's one of the again to bring up Star Wars, the very first Star Wars movie,
Yeah.
1976. It's super good at that. Like it goes like a rocket, like and nobody sits anybody down and well maybe I'd have to watch it again but it is
It's half an hour in,
yeah
because we don't see Luke until 20 minutes in the movie.
yeah
We do not see the protagonist, and it shocks people when I say that. I'm like, I measured it, it's 20
yeah,
minutes.
yeah.
But so by the time there's actually any real exposition on what the hell's going on, and it's only the absolute minimum
Mhm.
Luke needs to move him forward, it's got to be like half an hour in, because it's
Yeah,
when him and Obi-Wan sit down in his hut.
yeah, yeah. And there is some, I mean, yeah, but they do it so nicely, and it's only after repeated viewings I'm like, why are they here again? Oh yeah, they're doing that, and it's just like bam, 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 and they don't belabor it. They just say, okay, we got to do this, we'll do it, bam, and they, whereas these days there's a lot of that video game make work kind of stuff, like in the Avengers when Thor has to make his hammer, and they got to get Peter Dinklage to start up the old mill and that kind of thing. It
The
feels like
side
a
quest.
side quest,
Yeah.
and it's
Oh, these are the four side quests you have to complete
yeah,
before you can get back to the main adventure. Yeah.
and it's dragging you down. Like it just takes you out of everything. But anyway, there's nothing
Well,
against Peter Dinklage, but go ahead.
yeah. Well, and then so going back to the beginning of this, that was a little otherwise, I think it did it pretty well, but there was some missed opportunities there. Like even later on when there's the big flood, because it's almost like they had their exposition dump was really like 8 minutes, and then
Mhm.
they cut it in half. And then they're like, "Oh, it's still, but we did shoot that stuff. Like, let's throw it in at the end because we need to stretch it out just a little bit more." Um, yeah,
Well, I was going to say one thing that it shares in common with the your Independence Day like movies is that whereas Independence Day blew up the White House, this one famously takes out the White House. This one sort of destroys Shanghai, and which is a highly they think. Well, you've been there, right? You've
yeah.
been to Shanghai, so they're pretty proud of that city, I think. And to cover
It's
it in
more
a
prominent this film than Beijing.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you know,
to cover it in a 300-foot sheet of ice and have it just sort of collapse at various points. That sort of is in common. Like, take something you love, or take something that's very symbolic and then
iconic. Yeah, yeah.
iconic, and then just destroy it. Like,
Although I suppose if they didn't have they had that 300, 300, 400 meters of, well, yeah, 400 meters of ice.
lots, yeah,
So they couldn't really do Beijing because it's all,
yeah,
you know,
low,
5-story
yeah,
max. Nothing can be higher than the arrow gate. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
nothing must look down on the Forbidden City.
It is
Uh,
a very moderate snowbank, I tell you, and it's covered the Forbidden City entirely. What are we to do?
yeah, so I think otherwise, I suspect, well, and who knows? I mean, there's still some things you can do that, some
Mhm.
things you can't, from culture to culture.
Yeah,
Um, whereas the United States, that filmmaking, that disaster filmmaking style in the US, they seem to, it's almost did you really have a disaster movie if you didn't blow something up?
yeah.
Whether it needed to or not, you needed to see, oh, do you just thinking out loud, I especially they wipe it out at the beginning because it's almost like there's that weird sort of, like in any apocalyptic movie where it's an opportunity to like clean the slate. Is there
Mhm.
something like because that would appeal? Um, I could imagine that appealing to some elements of and I'm going to say the American viewership, not quite as much a Canadian thing, although we get wrapped up in it as well.
Mhm.
But that idea of these big centers, they're gone now. We'll have to
Yeah.
start fresh, which is a real thing about, any kind of disaster movie or apocalypse movie. And either, there's the pride thing, like pride, this is hubris, not pride, but hubris, so,
Mhm.
whereas you don't get that same vibe here.
Mhm.
They're all quite amazed with their machines, but they're not even like, they don't even explain why they all just stopped.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that would be the one thing that took me out of the movie for a while. It's like, well, what do you mean they all turned off? What the hell? Like,
Oh, the gravitational spike.
yeah, that turned the machine, the rocket engines
Yeah.
off,
By the
and then it was
way,
seen
but
on the ship that was ahead of them,
yeah.
towing them, whatever.
Konnichiwa, Noah. I just want to say
Oh,
that we have a visitor from
here, let me see.
across this.
And on YouTube, eh? I do believe that.
Yeah, we got a message anyway, live.
Yeah,
So,
I see it.
hi, Noah.
Okay. I can.
I can
All
show
right.
him.
So what am I saying?
I have
Konnichiwa.
the memo.
Jim, can
What's that?
I spell it?
KONNICHI,
Yeah.
and then
Okay.
space, and then WA.
Okay. From Jim. Okay, there we go. So, one of our viewers, Konnichiwa from Jim. Can you
Yep.
see our comment stuff, Jim?
Yeah, I just
Oh,
I have 2 tabs: live private chat and live comments.
okay, good. Um, and we have 2 viewers. So we had 2 viewers, and now it's gone back to 1.
Thank you.
Uh,
Do we have a shout out or some advertising to
oh, not yet. We haven't closed that deal, partly because
Oh, okay. Sorry, I hope I didn't give anything away.
listen, we don't have an ad. We don't have sponsorship until I have cash in my hand.
Mm.
Um,
So Keith Baxter will go unmentioned.
yeah. Well, other than the mentioning right now.
Oops. That's just an hors d'oeuvre of what you can expect on future episodes.
Oversharing.
Yeah.
Well, what was there anything like? Did you read any of the critics? Like, I just skimmed it
You know,
before it, and it was all what you would expect. You know,
yeah.
very. You know what, Jim? In a future episode, we
Mhm.
should try a segment where we review the reviewer.
Yeah.
After
Yeah.
if you pick one where it's like this review, I don't know what movie they saw. It wasn't the movie I just saw. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe, wow, if I had only took that review to heart, we wouldn't have wasted combined 4 hours of our life.
Well, this one did fairly well on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's over, like it's a pass, or it's a full tomato as opposed to the splat.
Yeah.
But and it's based on, I think it was 35 reviews or something to that effect. But
So it didn't get certified, but it was still considered pretty good.
yeah, they didn't seem to be super, like it was not a lot of you didn't get the tip, it wasn't like, well, I don't even know who a big one is, but A.O. Scott or that kind of thing. Like it was a lot of sort of web pages and things like that.
Ain't it?
So
Well, I
I
don't
don't
think it's
know.
around anymore, but the Ain't It Cool News or
Yeah,
BuzzFeed.
and that's
Yeah.
sort of a lot of the genre outfits seem to
Film
be
threat.
reviewing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and sort of the genre fanboys and girls
Yeah.
and stuff, and a lot of them liked it, and that's fine. But yeah, no. So I took a quick look, but I didn't want to. Again, it's sort of that hard thing where you don't want to spoil it too much for yourself, and you want to be in the movie when you want to be in the viewing of the movie when you're watching it. So yeah, so I didn't take a look at too much, but afterwards I took a quick look, and they liked it on Twitter, they liked it on Rotten Tomatoes, they liked it in China apparently. So
Well, I could see it. Like, and it was very. I do. There's almost almost like do like some sort of survey of these. You
oh
know what, the Russians have made some where they're really kind of very American style, like,
yeah,
because it still is an American style, big sci-fi, save the world kind of blockbuster.
I
And even its story structure, like I was looking at the Times whenever it really was a very Dan Harmon-esque, they're in that lowest of the low
mm,
moment where it's all just falling apart and they're ready to give up, and then someone has an idea.
oh yeah,
you know,
it's that sort of like
what the hell? Let's pick
uh,
ourselves up one more time. Let's give this a shot.
my
You know,
father gave me a balloon once, and that balloon is filled with helium or
yeah.
whatever. And wait a sec, we can save the Earth. Yeah,
All you needed was the balloon to float over the head
and
and
then
a light to go through it.
the pen drop where you're like,
Or one of those lights that's connected to their helmet to look around,
yeah.
and all of a sudden that zzz, zzz, you know,
So,
circa like a Mel Brooks silent movie.
yeah, exactly. So here's an eye for a future
Oh,
segment. So you
I'm
cut out
still
there.
here.
An eye for future segments. One is the fireworks factory, which is to say the event that's promised that doesn't happen.
And we've
There,
already identified that one.
yes.
So we're pretty much done with this movie, right? Like, I
Then
mean,
then there's the lethal weapon nail gun, which is the thing that they show in the first 15 minutes that will come in handy later. So in this case, it was the bottle of vodka that
yes, yeah,
the hooch there.
yeah, which was reasonably well set up, actually.
Well, you
Like,
know
I
what?
mean,
Even J.R.R. Tolkien did the same thing in Lord of the Rings. Like, you basically knew the contents of the characters' pockets, and 800 pages later, there's one thing, I forget what it was. It was like, oh, look, I have some Melvin bread. That'll keep us going, or something to that effect. But
And
this
it
is
was
sort of a
definitely
technique
Samwise Gamgee, because he was the
you're
character at all. He was the pack
yeah,
mule of the group.
the
So
handy guy.
yeah.
Um, here's a couple of more lines that I wrote down. Don't stir my dignity, which I can't remember.
Well, do you
Oh,
think
here's
what was another one? The roots, like, this is where, and if I was thinking of it, I do know a local Chinese, Chinese Canadian. He was born here, but he's like of a Chinese family, or anyway, it would have been nice to maybe involve him in some way so he could at least go, that's how that's pronounced. But I really am wondering, one of the lines, like something regular that I suspect means a lot more in China than it does to us, but the roads are, or the routes are endless, or the routes are, the truck would always say, hey, be careful, don't drive like an idiot, don't get lost, many
Don't
routes.
make your family cry. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, your loved ones in tears.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
tears. But
Yeah.
there was, the routes are endless, and it's like there's got to be some proverb that, and it's
I'm
those
sure.
weird little like subtle mistranslations where we're
Yes.
missing
Yeah.
some. It was transliterated, not, yeah.
That's a good point. So I'm not necessarily criticizing the script. I'm criticizing the translation, or making fun of the translation.
Yeah.
Just
It's all up for.
yeah. I mean, whoever, because there's a company that does the subtitles, right? It's a thing that they do. The first couple lines in the movie, it's Jupiter. A day may come when you can see Jupiter without a telescope. That's what we call foreshadowing. And oh yeah, the grandfather character says, back then, he's driving through Shanghai and saying, my wife wasn't a good cook, but she made these scallion noodles. They were very salty, but I ate every last drop. But then he goes on to say, I was so happy. Back then, no one was concerned about the sun. Everyone was concerned about the thing called money.
Yeah.
And then
We'll crack on materialism, and
which is,
but mind you, now there, as he's driving through Shanghai, which is that, I suspect a lot of Chinese cities could compete, but Shanghai really does, I think, have, even in the Chinese cultural imagination, that's where business is done.
Yeah.
That's where, it very much, because although you saw some of the, let's say, so there's so you got the river Pu, part of the Yangtze Delta, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But I could be, please don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
But on the one side of the river, you have Puxi, and that's the side of the river with the Bund from,
Oh yes, okay. Yeah.
with the Bund,
The
and then
English.
further on, a lot more, like literally, like I walked by it. It was like, that's where the first meeting of the Chinese Communist Party, when Mao was a young man. So that's the old part of town. And then on the other side, which was, if memory serves, there's a museum there. It's like a whole bunch of like fishing villages and whatnot in Pudong. And that is where the big tower is, it's the business area. And it's super, super new and shiny, and very, very impressive. Like,
yeah.
So I don't know where the hell I was going with that.
So I got some follow up here. So there is a sequel in the works apparently, and yeah, and it says after the film's impressive theatrical run. Anyways, there was something about wanting to get audience input to help them write it, or something to that effect. We
can have a moment in the next episode where we start spitballing ideas. But well, let's start right now. What would be an idea we could send in? Because is it all the same characters? I would imagine you don't spend all that money and say, "We're going to start all over." You know what? No, you finally establish some characters. There's all that promise of Lake Baikal and our children's children, children's children.
I would rather go for a hot pot in Chongqing. They're sort of fighting amongst themselves. But it says Guo was sparse in the details when he unveiled plans for a sequel on Tuesday night. He said audience surveys were conducted and are being sorted to guide plot structure. Nothing wrong's ever happened there. And the sequel would pay more attention to characters' emotions, perhaps in response to some criticism of wooden acting and one-dimensional characters in The Wandering Earth. So I'm quoting from radichina.com, an article called Director Frank Guo announces The Wandering Earth sequel by Zach Hollow. So that's... So I'm not stealing. I'm giving good credit.
Yeah. I want to push back a little on. I thought the acting was all pretty damn good. Like and well, we've discussed this before. I hate it when the script, that was the problem. It's like, how do you fucking know? That said, I think the actors were enjoying what it was.
Yeah.
Again, go back to Armageddon. Boy, there was some top tier talent in that movie. And they all seemed to have a really good idea of the kind of movie they were in. And so we're just running with it. They just kind of, most of those supporting characters understood what the movie they were in. And going back,
was that Billy Bob in that too?
Billy Bob Thornton.
Yeah, Billy Bob and Bruce Willis.
And he had a terrible role. Like, it was really, my legs, because he had the braces because of his. It's like, geez, it's kind of young to be a polio sufferer. Kind of young to have picked up polio when he was a kid. I think. And there goes back to translation and cultural stuff, because and this is where I feel bad. I didn't do I should have at least done a survey of this talent, like the on-screen talent, because who knows, like the comic relief characters could have this great history of doing comic relief. And they're all just doing the same bits. It's like, that's the Chinese Owen Wilson, and he's doing his thing that everybody in China loves. And we're missing it. We're missing comedy because it's just.
I'm sure we missed tons of stuff, tons of little cultural cues. There was one shot of on the icy truck taking off, and in the foreground, sort of to the side, was a marker, some sort of memorial. And I tried looking it up. I actually took about 5 minutes, stopped the movie, and I know I shouldn't be doing that, but anyway, and I think it was a memorial to Zhao Enlai, who was Mao's like number 2 guy or something to that effect. Don't quote me on that, but
they had that moment where the soldiers had given up.
Yeah,
the young man, the wayward youth, is finally becoming a man.
Yeah. And I think that's happened right around that part. And they take off for the next leg of their adventure. But in the foreground, there's a lingering shot on this thing, which on this stone, and it said the latitude and longitude. It was right in the city of Hangzhou, I think, was right near a famous university. But I tried various things. So it's those kinds of things. It's almost like when you watch something about English society and you're missing things on class. Because, there's class issues here, of course, but
you get the broad strokes of it.
Yeah.
But we're not in it. We're not of it.
And you may not pick up on the hyphenated names and everything else in English society, and the accents from one town over and that sort of thing too. So So I'm sure there was tons of it. Like the Tim character, the half Australian, half Chinese guy, who turns out to be half American, half Chinese in real life. But the Tim character,
really?
I think he was doing a voice. Like I think he was doing
Out loud.
yeah. And I
Okay,
think
I'm looking him up as we speak. Continue though.
his name's Mike or something. But I think
Yeah,
he was doing a thing.
It's all
He was
about
doing
you
a
right
voice.
now, Jim.
Okay, there you go.
Hey, so you think he was doing a voice? Go on.
I like like not a caricature, but like he was actually doing an accent. I guess is more precise, and I didn't quite pick up on what that would have been. Of course.
Mike Swee.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we've got. I've got. I won't put up the. Because neither of us will be able to read it.
So.
I keep doing this, Jim, where I'm hitting the wrong button because I'm trying to see around a. It's like we got a tripod and then the screen and then
the cat's
my eyes and. Okay, so here he is, born in Ann Arbor, Michigan, to a Chinese father and an American mother. Grew up in Michigan and Beijing. Attended Madison West High School in Madison, Wisconsin. After moving to Beijing in 2005, so it doesn't say when he was born. It didn't look old, but he's got to be then well into his 30s. Moved to Beijing in 2005, taught English, and acted on Chinese television shows and commercials.
Yeah.
His first film role was in 2010's Welcome to Shama Town. Very, very, very a Chinese movie. And he appeared alongside Stephen Sthphon Xavier Marbury, professional basketball coach, former player who is the head coach of the Beijing Royal Fighters of the Chinese Basketball Association. In the 2014 musical, I
know what our next movie is.
I Am Marbury. And it too has a post. Okay, you know what? Maybe we're not going to but we are gonna zoom in on the
the rabbit hole.
Well, wait a second. You gotta we have to at least look at this. Okay, and I'll zoom in. There's a method. There's some sort of system. Okay, come on. Where's the damn?
Sometimes that's as big as they get on if it's a Wikipedia link.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just gonna totally say screw it.
Well, that looks like a movie.
I don't want any more details. That sure is a movie.
All right, a Chinese basketball movie. Just further to there's an article. There's an article just about the science of it. There's an article called "Could the Wandering Earth Actually Happen?" Here's what a NASA engineer says. This is from inverse.com by Emily Rome. And a couple of the call out quotes are, "I don't know how you would build something that big." It in reference to the engines, and the engineer they talked to says it would take about 95% of the mass of Earth to do this.
That was one where it's, they're doing the mining. It's basically burning rocks.
And here's the other
nice little kind of semi, they're getting like a 10% right sort of thing. But I thought it was like, oh my God, they're going to be flying this thing for a while. Is there going to be anything left of the planet? Apparently not. Okay, continue. Sorry.
And then just the other salient point I wanted to bring up, which I think should be a sequel. It says the header in this section, what about the moon? In all of the film shots of the wandering Earth, the moon is nowhere in sight. Leave the moon behind. And the engineer
was like, screw it. Never liked the moon. There's always stuff in a move, Jim, in any move, whether it be down the street to another city or perhaps another planet or solar body, another stellar body out there, where there's stuff we can't take everything. And you know what? That United Earth government went, yeah, you know what? They're going through the list. Yeah, no, that's keeper. That's keeper. The moon.
Those French
Get your
guys.
head out of your ass.
This
We're not
moon,
bringing the moon. Look at that thing. What has it ever done for us?
this moon gives me no joy. Who's the Japanese? I can't remember her name. So the article goes on. Yeah,
Oh,
what about the
the,
moon?
the
It says,
Naked Wonder
"Can we
Woman.
leave the moon behind?" And then the engineer says, "You can't just do that." The engineer explains that if the speed of the Earth moving through the solar system is accelerating, the moon's going to adjust its orbit as you move. And as it does that, it's going to get into an unstable orbit. And depending on how fast they're accelerating and how fast they're moving away, I would not be surprised if, and it says in brackets, the moon ran into the Earth. Well, there's a sequel. Well, I guess it's too late for a prequel,
Yeah,
or a
they're
germ
obviously, much as they figure it out how to strap rockets onto the Earth,
Yep.
they managed to figure out how to ditch the moon. Maybe there's some other rockets on it that held it in place
And
while we were.
And the thing that saves the Earth at the end was when the whiz kid says, does anyone recall the 12 Chimes of Spring Festival? Remember I did that fireworks thing? And
Yes,
nobody liked it. I'm going to use that to save the Earth. Yeah,
Well,
boring.
But
Yeah,
but
she
we had
needed
that nice little moment though, which then gets paid off.
Yeah.
You know, that nice little moment where she's all of a sudden she's like, "Oh, you're that." Because remember they were having the fight when they first met. Because I don't know,
yeah.
one either crazy
Yeah.
or thought
That
they
was
were trying to rip him off. Like it was kind of tonally off.
That was an unclear moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was many of them, but that was like they're just fighting.
Yeah. Well, and it looked pretty scary, right?
Yeah.
Because she really is. She's a high school student and she's quite petite.
Yes.
And it was like kind of like for a moment there, Jim, honestly, I was like, oh, is it going to turn into one of these movies? Are we do it? Oh, okay. And then it was all kind of cool. So I think it should have been more the swing, the wild swing is they usually handle that stuff. They go into the thing, whatever it is, the ship, the house, and then all of a sudden somebody takes a swing and maybe somebody gets kind of conked on the head. And it's like, whoa, we're all cool here. And, and then they can recover from that. But later on, he's talking about that thing. And she's like what was it? The 12 something of spring?
Oh, 12 Chimes of Spring Festival.
Yes. And she was super excited. And he was cool about it. So, of course, then later, there's obviously some sort of crush, romantic tension there, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, he was actually, turned out he was introduced fairly late. Ended up the guy with the dice, the whiz kid with the dice, ended up being one of my favorite characters. So, they didn't even give him a proper introduction. But anyway, that's.
Whoop. This is really, I don't know why, Jim, I use this thing in this context. It never really works out for me.
No.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, well, I think, you know what, for our viewers, I think we should wrap it up.
Sure.
We're already, we're over an hour in.
But I think we started about 10 minutes into the live. So, yeah.
Yeah, which isn't bad. And we're having good momentum. It's time to kill it. Now that we're finally relaxed, time to turn it off. But for our faithful viewer out there, thank you very, very much. Do we have any ideas at all? Just kind of a mystery on what we're going to watch for the next one. Like, I don't.
Oh, my moon shut
Yeah.
off.
What do you? I mean, it's not like we have to answer this question right now, but
yeah, I'm actually.
Or is it all going to be something like that? I mean, that's not a terrible thing, but
did you have anything in mind initially, or?
Yeah.
I just had to put the moon back on its axis.
So much. I'm wondering. I'm not a. You know what? We've actually been pretty fortunate, even when there has been problems. All three movies we've seen, they had their. Oh, speaking of Overlord, I did not put it together, and you probably, or you might have brought it up in the Overlord episode, but that Wyatt Russell, I didn't know he's Kurt Russell's kid.
Yeah. I might have
catch that play at all.
Yeah.
Like at
I
all.
mostly
That sort of blows my mind.
he was in an AMC series called Lodge 49, which was canceled after 2 seasons, but was quite good and sort of had one of those cult following type things. But like a lot of interesting stuff on TV, they didn't let it breathe enough, and they pulled the plug. But it was a cool show, and he was good on it too. And he played a total different character. He was a chill surfer dude, kind of dumb, and in this one, he's like a hardcore, PTSD guy. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. No, I pulled it off.
Intensity to it, and
speaks to range, and
yeah. And given his father, was one of those click holes that went in and talking about his father's approach to acting, and actually his whole 90% of acting is, hitting your marks and saying your line.
Yeah.
Anybody else is talking about it like it's anything more than that is full of crap. Yeah. Because rather cynical may not be the word, but I don't know. His opinion of Hollywood, especially, but the industry in general, is not something where he's like.
Also, is he doing Hamlet anytime soon?
No, but you know what? He certainly has a style. His range is not as wide as some, maybe not as wide as his kids, but he has been a solid comic and comic action actor for, literally decades.
Yeah.
Okay. And a feature actor. Well, tell you what, why don't we, for now, I think we can, we'll sign off with the folks. Let's stay online for a bit and we can chat some more. But yeah, I gotta admit, I got, other than I just keep saying Shanghai Express, sorry.
Yeah.
So much that it's like, hey, maybe we should watch that. And then it's like, I want to stick needles in my eyes. Like, shut up. You're going to end up doing it. It's not going to be fun.
Yeah.
Because we've had a pretty good, run. I'm sure we'll think of something, and hopefully I'll get the promo out to our several fans in a more timely manner than literally 3 hours before the movie and having to push our showtime back and back because I'm still trying to get that out before I watch the movie.
Well, yeah. I mean, we all got our things we're dealing with, and
we all get stuff.
Yeah.
All right, my friend, I'm going to let's say goodbye to our viewer, whoever you may be. Let's one more check.
It could be many of them around the same computer.
Yeah, that's, you know what? You're absolutely correct, Jim.
Yeah.
But we whether it be 1 or 81 of you, like that. Thank you so much, and we'll see you either next weekend or the weekend after that. Looks like hey Jim, would you agree we're kind of zeroing in on weekends as far as
I think so, yeah.
Happen, on Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. That doesn't mean that it will for sure be on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday night.
Yeah.
Probably. All right. Well, then to you, I'm going to let you go. So I'm going to throw up a bit of branding, and it'll get slicker as we go on. But right now, let's just get this up. I'm going to take you off, Jim. I think. Alrighty. Oh, I'm not doing anything. You know what? We're just going to have to live with the fact that we don't know what we're putting on. And so good night, everybody.
Yeah.
All right. Stay on the line, Jim. I'm ending the broadcast now.